let's look forward to the future. The far future, a dystopian future that some might argue we're well on our way towards. In Android Netrunner, which Fantasy Flight has announced another new expansion for.
Right, but unlike the other ones, which are just more cards, which if you're a fan of the card game, you like, this one actually is trying to bring out something a little bit new. This is actually called a campaign expansion.
That's right. It's called Terminal Directive.
As you can see behind us.
And how does it work exactly?
So the idea is, I almost want to call this like a pseudo-legacy game. Because you open it up and there are actually cards that play, like if you're the run, you choose either the runner or the corp. And once you do, you can't play the other side. And they have their own packs that you can't open up until something's met as you play games and such. And you each have a little PDA, it's a piece of paper which you'll put stickers on, and you're trying to find out, like, apparently there's some crazed serial killer out there that's both sides are worried about, and you both want to find out who it is and to control the truth. I assume this meaning to prove A, if it's someone behind the corporation and the runners find out they can expose the truth, B, if it's the corporations they can bend it to their will and say it's a runner.
And supposedly they said, like, evidence looks like it's a robot, which is like, the whole laws of robotics kind of thing comes into play, and that sounded like very Blade Runner-y, which of course the entire series kind of is. But yeah, that was, and then other than that, like, it's
of course all these cards that it comes with, supposedly, or most of them can be played in the regular LCG game style.
Right, and they specifically mentioned that with this and the core set is all you technically need to play. So it almost sounds like they might be trying to say, if you're new to the game, people who like legacy games, like this is a way for them to draw you in, just start off with these two sets, which is interesting. It's certainly not something I expected to come from Android.
Not at all. You mean Android Netrunner, the card game? I will say that.
Sure, right.
And I'm both happy and disappointed. I'm happy because I think Netrunner, this sounds like the perfect idea, like a battle of wit legacy game. Like most of the ones we know of, like there's Risk Legacy, which is sort of everyone for themselves. There's Seafall is sort of everyone for themselves too, and then Pandemic, whichever one. But then the idea if someone making a 1v1 legacy game, which I think would be great. One reason is we mentioned it's actually hard to get our legacy games going because it's always like, is all 4 people here or this? And
right.
So I think a 2-player legacy game would be really cool, and I think Netrunner is a perfect choice for it. The problem is also, I'm like, I wish they didn't attach it to the card game, because sure, technically, you don't need anything besides the core in this. But you're like, well, I do want these cards. And they also just released the World Championship decks. And it's just like...
Well, that's the weird thing. I mean, they didn't go into too much detail in the article about exactly how the nitty-gritty works. But are you going to, like, be able to take in your super customized decks? Or is it going to be more
From what I can tell,
managed?
Yeah, that's what I don't know, too. And from what I can tell, you don't edit the cards themselves. Because you can't bring a tournament to, like, I chose this sticker.
Right, right.
And that's why I really wish they just took Android Netrunner, like they've done with they've done this already with some of Android Netrunner games. I think some of them are new, some of them are just pasted over, like Ghost or some. But
you mean like the new board game just based in that universe?
I want them to do that, like just go all out, full legacy.
This feels maybe like a half measure.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess I can't blame them because Android Netrunner, the card game, is where it's all at, but I do feel you could make a fantastic legacy game in this universe.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, it's definitely a really interesting experiment. I'm really curious
overall,
to see how
I think it's a positive, and I should support them for trying something different, because hopefully it leads to more. I mean, I shouldn't get angry at them for the first step.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's super weird. Basically, you just want.
But just please follow through. Like this definitely is where I think you could have a lot of fun and just like make that way you're not chained down by like, because I mean this isn't just in this, but you see it in plenty of other things where there's both a PvP and a PvE setting for either a card game, a video game, board game, whatever. In which if you have a large enough PvP setting, there in tournament scene, it's very hard to be like making new things because you have to keep it balanced and like so if one thing runs amok and a lot of places don't want to either errata or ban cards because that's always a pain.
Yeah, well,
That's why I would love them to really almost release themselves of the rules of the Android Netrunner LCG.
Well, it sounds like this is at least, again, we're not really sure, but it sounds like more of a standalone thing, which is, I think is kind of cool as a change of pace, that like there's one expansion that it's like, you use the cards in this, well, it said you need the core set too, so we know at least that it requires those basic sets.
And I will say it is an interesting expansion and maybe could be interesting for not just Android Netrunner, but for a lot of LCGs and card games that have this sort of every now and then story expansion that doesn't really, like, you sort of play with the card game, but you don't. Like, the examples I could think of was in Magic the Gathering, they made, I think it's called Nemesis.
Okay.
Or something, when one player actually plays like the supervillain and everyone fights that one person, they get special bid cards. And the idea of adding a whole new good mode, but like in this situation is what we like is more story. Mm-hmm. So what if Magic then did something where you each actually played, you had to have specifically a red one, planeswalker, or a blue guy, and you actually had a special deck that plays on its own that flips or something that really sticks to whatever's happening in the Magic story.
Yeah,
so.
No, I mean that sounds really cool fit for that. I guess my concern is that this is the legacy thing is starting to creep into everything, and maybe I think there are definitely some games that it really doesn't apply to without a lot of rehauling, and I don't want them to just say, oh, this is what's hot now, let's put it in every game.
No, you're absolutely right. And honestly, it's not just I want a legacy game of Android Netrunner, I just want more games of Android Netrunner that aren't a card game, because I think that universe is a really cool one. And honestly, as we move forward, we made a joke in the beginning of the story, but like this is becoming more and more pertinent to where we are now, honestly.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, honestly, you can compare plenty. I mean, you, because I haven't watched them yet, but plenty of Black Mirror episodes to probably a bunch of the Android Netrunner cards, and be like, that was episode 2, that was episode 4,
or just the NSA.
Yeah. So that's what I really think. This is a gold mine for them. Like, they've got their tournament scene, I think, pretty well done. It's one of the biggest LCG tournament scenes I could think of. Mm-hmm. They really should now expand, like. They don't have to go fast. Like, this is a good start, but that's all. I just want them to follow through with it.
It's certainly a curveball, and it'll be interesting to see if this in any way gets adapted to that tournament scene, or if these cards are really one and done, or if people are going to find ways to use them in other places. And then
it
it's
depends
like
how the cards work too.
We'll be like, I don't want to play this guy because I didn't see that card yet, so it's like a spoiler if I see the card he has in his deck or something. There's some weird things to consider.
Well, I'm guessing if you're going into a tournament with this set legal,
you probably know.
You've probably looked at every single card that can come in the set.
Right.
I
would hope so.
But yeah, I definitely, overall, it's just a fear of and hope of following through.
We will see. Change is always frightening, but this comes out in sometime in early 2017.
Definitely check it out. A great place if you're sort of curious about the LCG, but you still like the story, because like you said, all you need is the core.
Like, I was intrigued, but also like it's kind of like you. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that goes.
I definitely say it's gonna hit me more because I actually have the base, so we could probably just go into it.
Right. Yeah. It'll be something.